The power of inner peace is one of the most underestimated forces a human being can possess. In a world that constantly demands reactions, opinions, speed, and noise, the ability to remain calm within yourself becomes a rare and valuable strength. Inner peace is not the absence of problems, pain, or pressure. It is the presence of control when those things arrive. It is the quiet confidence that no matter what happens outside of you, there is a steady place within you that remains untouched. Most people spend their lives trying to control circumstances, people, outcomes, and environments, yet they neglect the one domain where true power exists, their own mind. When inner peace is absent, even small challenges feel overwhelming. A single negative comment can ruin an entire day. A minor setback can drain motivation. The mind becomes reactive, jumping from emotion to emotion, constantly seeking relief from discomfort. This state is exhausting because it places your sense of stability in the hands of things you cannot control. Inner peace reverses this dynamic. It shifts authority back to you. You no longer need the world to behave a certain way in order to feel steady. You no longer wait for perfect conditions to feel confident, focused, or grounded. Inner peace begins with understanding that not everything deserves your emotional energy. Energy is finite. Every reaction costs something. Anger costs clarity. Anxiety costs focus. Resentment costs peace. When you react to everything, you weaken yourself. When you choose your reactions carefully, you preserve strength. The calm mind does not mean a passive mind, it means a disciplined mind. One that observes before it responds. One that understands that silence can be more powerful than argument and patience more effective than force. A peaceful mind sees situations more clearly. When emotions are constantly stirred, judgment becomes distorted. Decisions are made from fear, ego, or urgency rather than wisdom. Inner peace creates space between stimulus and response. In that space lies choice, and in choice lies freedom. The person who can pause, reflect, and act deliberately holds an advantage over those who are driven by impulse. This is why inner peace is not weakness, but strategic strength. Many believe that inner peace comes after success, after problems are solved, after life becomes easier. In truth, inner peace is often the cause, not the result. Those who cultivate calm are better equipped to handle pressure, remain consistent, and persist when others quit. They do not crumble under stress because they are not fighting their own minds. They move forward steadily, conserving energy, learning from challenges instead of being consumed by them. Inner peace also changes how you relate to others. When you are at peace within yourself, you are no longer easily provoked. Criticism loses its power. Praise no longer controls you. You listen more than you speak. You respond rather than react. This does not mean you tolerate disrespect or avoid difficult conversations. It means you engage from a place of control rather than emotion. People sense this stability. They respect it. They feel it in your presence. Calmness carries authority without needing to announce itself. The pursuit of inner peace requires honesty. You must face the habits of thought that disturb your mind, worrying about things beyond your control, replaying past mistakes, seeking validation from others, comparing your path to someone else's journey. These mental patterns are the true enemies of peace. They keep the mind trapped in cycles of regret and anticipation, never fully present, never fully grounded. Inner peace grows when you learn to let go of what you cannot change and take responsibility for what you can. Discipline plays a crucial role. Peace is not achieved through avoidance, but through consistent practice. It is built through daily choices, choosing to step back instead of escalate, choosing rest instead of constant stimulation, choosing purpose over noise. The mind, like the body, responds to training. What you feed it, what you expose it to, and what you allow it to dwell on shapes its state. A peaceful mind is the result of repeated, intentional alignment with what truly matters. There will be moments when inner peace feels difficult, especially during loss, failure, or uncertainty. These are not signs of failure, but opportunities for growth. Peace does not mean you feel nothing. It means you feel deeply without losing yourself. You acknowledge pain without letting it define you. You experience fear without letting it dictate your actions. This balance is what creates resilience, the ability to remain centered even when life feels unstable. As you cultivate inner peace, you begin to notice a shift in your priorities. You stop chasing distractions that once consumed you. You become more selective with your time, your energy, and your attention. You understand that peace is not something you find by escaping life, but something you carry with you as you move through it. The noise of the world does not disappear, but it no longer lives inside you. Ultimately, the power of inner peace is that it allows you to live deliberately rather than reactively. It gives you the strength to stay focused on your path, even when others are rushing in different directions. It anchors you when outcomes are uncertain and grounds you when emotions rise. Inner peace becomes the foundation from which confidence, clarity, and purpose naturally grow, shaping not only how you think, but how you move, decide, and exist in the world with quiet strength and steady presence. Detaching emotions from external circumstances is one of the most powerful mental disciplines a person can develop. Most emotional suffering does not come from what happens, but from the meaning we assign to what happens. The mind reacts automatically, interpreting events as personal, permanent, or threatening, even when they are not. When emotions are tied directly to circumstances, life becomes a series of emotional highs and lows dictated by things outside your control. Peace, confidence, and focus rise and fall depending on outcomes, opinions, and situations. Detachment breaks this cycle by restoring authority over your inner world. To detach does not mean to suppress emotions or become cold and indifferent. It means to experience emotions without allowing them to govern your identity or behavior. Emotions are signals, not commands. They inform you, but they do not have to control you. When you learn this distinction, you gain space between what you feel and how you act. That space is where wisdom lies. It allows you to respond intentionally instead of reacting impulsively. External circumstances are constantly changing. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. Expectations will not always be met. If your emotional state depends on everything going smoothly, you will always feel unstable. Detachment teaches you to remain steady regardless of fluctuations. Success no longer makes you arrogant. Failure no longer destroys your confidence. Praise does not inflate your ego, and criticism does not define your worth. You begin to understand that circumstances are temporary, but your inner state can be trained to remain consistent. The mind naturally seeks control, and when it cannot control events, it attempts to control emotions by resisting them. This resistance creates inner conflict. Detachment removes the need for resistance. Instead of fighting reality, you accept it as it is while still choosing how you move forward. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means acknowledging what exists without adding emotional suffering to it. When you stop arguing with reality, you conserve energy and clarity. One of the greatest sources of emotional attachment is the desire for validation. When your self-worth depends on how others see you, you surrender control of your emotions. A compliment can lift you, and a single negative comment can ruin your day. Detachment restores independence. You no longer outsource your emotional stability to external approval. Your value becomes internal, rooted in character, effort, and intention rather than opinion. Fear also thrives on emotional attachment. Fear grows when outcomes feel personal and catastrophic. Detachment reduces fear by reminding you that no single event defines your entire life. A mistake is feedback, not identity. A loss is a chapter, not the whole story. When you stop emotionally clinging to outcomes, you become more courageous. You take action without being paralyzed by the need for certainty. You move forward knowing that you can handle whatever follows. Detachment sharpens decision-making. Emotional reactions often distort judgment. Anger narrows perspective. Anxiety exaggerates risk. Attachment clouds logic. When you detach, you see situations more clearly. You assess facts without emotional noise. You choose strategies instead of venting frustration. This is why emotionally detached individuals often appear calm under pressure. They are not immune to stress. They are simply not enslaved by it. Practicing detachment requires awareness. You must notice when emotions arise and observe them without immediate reaction. This is not easy. The mind is conditioned to respond quickly, to defend, to explain, to retaliate. Detachment asks for patience. It asks you to pause and question your assumptions. Is this truly a threat, or is it simply uncomfortable? Is this situation permanent or temporary? Is this worth my energy, or am I reacting out of habit? Over time, detachment becomes a habit rather than a struggle. You begin to trust your ability to remain centered. Emotional storms pass more quickly because you are not feeding them with constant thought. You feel emotions fully, but you do not prolong them unnecessarily. This creates resilience. You recover faster. You adapt quicker. You remain focused on what matters instead of being pulled into emotional turbulence. Detachment also deepens relationships. When you are not emotionally dependent on others' behavior, you interact more honestly. You listen without defensiveness. You speak without fear. You give without expectation. This creates healthier connections built on mutual respect rather than emotional need. Detachment allows love without possession and connection without control. Life does not become easier when you detach from circumstances, but you become stronger. You stop waiting for the world to change before you feel okay. You carry stability within you. This inner independence is freedom. It allows you to face uncertainty with confidence, to endure difficulty with grace, and to remain grounded regardless of what unfolds around you. Because your emotions are no longer chained to circumstances you were never meant to control your response. Not your circumstances, one, is a principle that separates those who live in constant struggle from those who move through life with strength and clarity. Most frustration comes from trying to control what was never meant to be controlled. People attempt to manage outcomes, behaviors, timing, and events, believing that peace will arrive once everything aligns with their expectations. When life inevitably resists this control, stress and disappointment follow. Mastery begins when you accept that circumstances will change. People will act according to their nature, and outcomes will remain uncertain. But your response is always within your authority. The moment something unexpected happens, the mind instinctively reacts. It judges, resists someone, and assigns meaning before reason has a chance to intervene. This automatic reaction often creates more damage than the event itself. A delay becomes anger. A mistake becomes self-doubt. A criticism becomes resentment. These reactions feel justified in the moment, yet they quietly drain energy, clarity, and confidence. Controlling your response means interrupting this pattern. It means choosing intention over impulse and awareness over habit. Circumstances are external and temporary. Responses are internal and lasting. You may not control a loss, but you control whether it becomes a lesson or a limitation. You may not control rejection, but you control whether it strengthens your resolve or weakens your belief in yourself. When you recognize this distinction, you stop feeling powerless. Even in the most challenging situations, you retain agency over your inner state and your next action. This principle does not ask you to deny emotions, when feelings will arise naturally. Disappointment, anger, fear, and sadness are part of being human. Control lies not in eliminating these emotions, but in deciding how long you dwell in them and how they influence your behavior. Emotion acknowledged becomes information. Emotion indulged becomes a prison. The disciplined mind allows emotions to pass through without allowing them to take command. One of the greatest illusions is the belief that reacting strongly proves importance or strength. In reality, uncontrolled reactions often reveal insecurity. True strength appears as composure, the ability to remain calm under pressure, to listen when provoked, and to think clearly when stakes are high signals self-mastery. This composure is not passive. It is deliberate restraint guided by long-term vision rather than short-term relief. Controlling your response requires practice. The first step is awareness. You must notice the moment when emotion begins to rise. That brief pause before action is where control is either lost or claimed. In that pause, ask yourself what response aligns with your values, not your ego. Ask what choice will serve you tomorrow, not just satisfy you now. This moment of reflection transforms reaction into response. When responses are controlled, decision-making improves. Instead of being driven by urgency or fear, choices are made with clarity. You stop wasting energy on blame and focus instead on solutions. You become adaptable. Adaptability is a form of intelligence. It allows you to move forward even when conditions are unfavorable. Those who adapt rather than resist remain effective regardless of circumstance. This mindset also reshapes how you interpret failure. When circumstances do not go as planned, many people internalize the outcome as a personal flaw. 1. Controlling your response allows you to separate your identity from the event. A failed attempt does not define you. It informs you. You extract the lesson and move forward without carrying unnecessary emotional weight. This is how resilience is built, not through avoidance of failure, but through constructive response to it. Relationships benefit deeply from controlled responses. Many conflicts escalate not because of the issue itself, but because of emotional reactions layered on top of it. When you respond thoughtfully instead of defensively, tension dissolves faster. Communication becomes clearer. Respect increases. You become someone others feel safe engaging with even in disagreement, because you are not ruled by emotional volatility. Life will continue to test patience, challenge expectations, and disrupt plans. This will never change. What can change is how you meet those moments. When you stop demanding that circumstances obey you and start mastering how you respond to them, you reclaim power. You stop being a victim of events and become an active participant in your own growth. Ultimately, controlling your response is about choosing who you become in every situation. Each response shapes your character. Each moment of restraint strengthens your discipline. Each thoughtful action builds confidence in your ability to navigate uncertainty. When you realize that control has always been internal, you stop fighting the world and start directing your energy toward purposeful action. Steady progress, 1. An inner stability that remains intact no matter how unpredictable life becomes. Viewing challenges as growth opportunities is a mindset that transforms the way life is experienced. Most people instinctively resist difficulty. They see obstacles as interruptions, setbacks, or signs that something has gone wrong. This perception turns challenges into sources of fear and frustration. Yet history and human experience repeatedly show that growth rarely occurs in comfort. Strength, our clarity, resilience, and wisdom are almost always forged in moments of resistance, when challenges are redefined as opportunities for development. They lose their power to intimidate and gain the ability to instruct. Every challenge carries information. It reveals where you are strong and where you are unprepared. It exposes habits, beliefs, and limitations that remain hidden when everything is easy. Without challenge, there is no pressure, and without pressure, there is no transformation. Muscles do not grow without resistance, and neither does character. When life applies pressure, it is not necessarily trying to break you. Often it is trying to shape you. The difference between those who grow and those who stagnate is not the presence or absence of difficulty, but interpretation. When a challenge is viewed as punishment, it breeds bitterness. When it is viewed as opportunity, it breeds learning. The same experience can weaken one person and strengthen another depending on the meaning assigned to it. This interpretation is a choice, not a circumstance. It requires discipline to pause and ask what a situation is trying to teach rather than why it is happening. Challenges demand adaptation. They force you to stretch beyond familiar patterns. When the old methods stop working, creativity emerges. When comfort is removed, awareness increases. Many of the abilities people take pride in were developed not through ease, but through necessity. Resourcefulness, patience, courage, and persistence are often born in moments when giving up feels easier than continuing. Those moments define growth more than any success ever could. Failure is one of the most misunderstood challenges. It is often treated as a verdict on ability or worth, when in reality it is feedback. Each failure highlights what needs refinement. It clarifies strategy. It strengthens resolve. When failure is feared, potential is limited. When failure is embraced as part of growth, progress accelerates. The willingness to fail repeatedly in pursuit of improvement is a hallmark of those who eventually succeed. Challenges also reveal inner strength that comfort never demands. You discover how resilient you are only when tested. You learn how focused you can be only when distractions threaten progress. You uncover discipline only when motivation fades. These qualities remain dormant until circumstances call them forward. Difficulty acts as the invitation. Growth is the response. 1. Viewing challenges as opportunities does not mean denying hardship or pretending pain does not exist. Some challenges are deeply uncomfortable and emotionally demanding. Growth does not require indifference to pain, but engagement with it. Pain acknowledged becomes experience. Pain avoided becomes fear. When you face challenges directly, you reduce their control over you. You stop running from discomfort and begin using it as a tool for self-development. This mindset also builds confidence. Each challenge overcome becomes evidence of capability. Even challenges that are not fully resolved contribute to growth by proving that you can endure. When endurance itself is a skill, the ability to remain present, focused, and committed in difficult moments strengthens belief in yourself. That belief compounds over time, creating a sense of inner stability that does not depend on circumstances being ideal. Challenges often arrive without warning and without permission. They disrupt plans and expectations. While this can feel unfair, it also provides an opportunity to practice flexibility. Rigidity breaks under pressure, but adaptability evolves. Those who learn and adjust rather than resist remain effective even when conditions change. Adaptability is one of the most valuable traits in a world that is constantly shifting. Growth through challenge also refines purpose. When things are easy, when direction can feel unclear, when difficulty arises, priorities sharpen. You learn what truly matters and what can be let go. 1. Challenges strip away excess and reveal essentials. They force alignment between intention and action. This clarity is often one of the most valuable outcomes of adversity. Ultimately, viewing challenges as growth opportunities is about trusting the process of development. When it is understanding that progress is rarely linear and comfort is rarely transformative. Each challenge is an invitation to become stronger, wiser, and more capable than before. When you stop asking why life is difficult and start asking how you can grow through it, challenges lose their power to discourage and gain the power to shape you into a version of yourself that could only be formed through resistance and deliberate perseverance. Preserving your mental energy is one of the most important disciplines in a world designed to drain it. Every thought you entertain, every worry you revisit, and every unnecessary reaction you engage in consumes a portion of your cognitive strength. Unlike time, mental energy can be silently depleted without you noticing until focus fades, patience thins, and motivation weakens. Many people feel exhausted, not because they are doing too much, but because they are thinking too much about things that do not deserve their attention. Learning to protect your mental energy is learning to protect your effectiveness. Mental energy is the fuel behind clarity, creativity, and decision-making. When it is scattered across distractions, conflicts, and emotional turbulence, performance suffers. You may still be busy, but progress slows. Preserving mental energy begins with awareness of what drains it. Complaining, overanalyzing, dwelling on past mistakes, anticipating worst-case scenarios, and seeking constant validation are among the most common leaks. These habits provide no meaningful return on investment, yet they consume enormous internal resources. One of the greatest drains on mental energy is unnecessary emotional reaction. Not every comment requires a response. Not every opinion deserves engagement. Not every problem needs to be solved immediately. Reacting to everything keeps the mind in a constant state of alert, which leads to fatigue. Strategic restraint conserves strength. When you choose not to engage with distractions, you are not avoiding responsibility, you are prioritizing what truly matters. Preservation does not mean isolation or indifference. It means selectivity. You cannot give equal attention to everything without weakening yourself. High-performing individuals understand this intuitively. They focus their energy on tasks, thoughts, and relationships that align with their goals. They limit exposure to chaos, negativity, and noise. This is not arrogance, it is discipline. The mind thrives in environments that support clarity rather than constant stimulation. Another major drain is decision fatigue. Every small choice consumes mental energy. When your day is filled with trivial decisions, your capacity for important ones diminishes. Simplifying routines, creating structure, and reducing unnecessary choices preserves cognitive strength. This allows your best thinking to be reserved for challenges that truly require it. Mental energy, when managed intentionally, compounds rather than depletes. Preserving mental energy also involves learning when to let go. Holding on to resentment, regret, or guilt anchors the mind in the past. These emotional attachments replay events that cannot be changed, draining energy without producing growth. Letting go does not mean forgetting or excusing. It means releasing the emotional charge attached to what has already occurred. This release frees mental space for learning and forward movement. Rest is often misunderstood as weakness or laziness, but it is essential to preservation. A rested mind processes information more efficiently, adapts more quickly, and responds with greater emotional control. Constant stimulation in business may feel productive, but they gradually erode mental resilience. Strategic rest is not a break from progress. It is an investment in sustained performance. Mental energy is also preserved through focus. Multitasking fractures attention and increases cognitive load. When the mind is pulled in multiple directions, efficiency decreases and fatigue increases. Single tasking, even for short periods, strengthens concentration and reduces mental strain. Depth of focus produces better results with less effort, conserving energy for future challenges. Boundaries play a critical role. Without them, mental energy is constantly invaded by external demands. Learning to say no, to limit availability, and to protect quiet time is not selfish, it is necessary. When boundaries are absent, resentment grows and energy drains. When boundaries are clear, one engagement becomes intentional and sustainable. Preserving mental energy ultimately changes how you move through life. You become less reactive and more deliberate. You stop wasting strength on things that cannot be controlled and invest it in actions that create progress. You think more clearly, decide more confidently, and recover more quickly from stress. Mental energy, when protected and directed, becomes a powerful ally rather than a constant struggle, allowing you to operate with calm focus and endurance in a world that constantly competes for your attention. Inner resources indifference is often misunderstood as a lack of care, a cold withdrawal from responsibility, or an absence of emotion, but true indifference is none of these things. Real indifference is a conscious act of prioritization. It is the deliberate decision to reserve emotional energy for what truly matters and to release concern for what does not. In a world overflowing with opinions, demands, conflicts, and noise, the ability to be selectively indifferent is not a weakness, but a refined form of strength. It reflects clarity of values rather than emptiness of feeling. Apathy is disengagement. It arises from exhaustion, hopelessness, or disconnection. Indifference, by contrast, arises from awareness. It is rooted in understanding what aligns with your purpose and what does not. When someone is apathetic, they feel nothing because they have given up. When someone is indifferent in a healthy sense, they feel deeply, but only toward what deserves their attention. This distinction changes everything. It determines whether you drift through life or move through it with intention. Many people confuse being emotionally reactive with being passionate. They believe that responding to every situation proves involvement and care. In reality, constant reaction often signals a lack of direction. When everything triggers a response, nothing holds true importance. Selective indifference restores balance. It allows you to engage fully where your values lie and disengage where your energy would be wasted. This clarity strengthens focus rather than diminishing compassion. Indifference as prioritization requires self-knowledge. You must know what matters to you, what your goals are, and what kind of person you are trying to become. Without this internal compass, indifference can easily slide into avoidance. With it, indifference becomes a filter. It screens out distractions, petty conflicts, and unnecessary drama, allowing attention to remain fixed on growth, contribution, and purpose. One of the greatest drains on modern life is the pressure to care about everything. News cycles, social media, opinions of strangers, and endless comparisons demand emotional investment. This constant exposure fragments attention and erodes peace. Indifference acts as a shield. It does not deny reality, but it limits emotional entanglement. You can be informed without being overwhelmed. You can be aware without being consumed. In relationships, one healthy indifference prevents manipulation and dependency. When your emotional state depends entirely on others' behavior, you surrender autonomy. Indifference restores balance. It allows love without control, connection without desperation, and boundaries without guilt. You can care deeply while refusing to be pulled into unnecessary conflict or emotional games. This form of indifference protects both your well-being and the integrity of the relationship. Indifference also strengthens resilience. When setbacks occur, those who attach their identity to every outcome suffer deeply. Those who practice prioritization recover faster. They acknowledge disappointment without letting it define them. They learn without dwelling. They adjust without self-punishment. Indifference toward failure does not mean lack of ambition. It means ambition guided by long-term vision rather than short-term emotion. This mindset sharpens decision-making. When you are not emotionally entangled in every detail, you see situations more clearly. You can assess risk objectively. Choose responses deliberately and act strategically. Emotional overinvestment clouds judgment. Prioritized indifference clears it. You stop asking how something makes you feel in the moment and start asking whether it aligns with your values and goals. There is also a moral dimension to this form of indifference. Caring about everything equally often results in caring about nothing effectively. When energy is spread too thin, impact diminishes. Prioritization allows depth instead of breadth. You choose causes, people, and pursuits where your effort can make a real difference. This focus increases effectiveness and prevents burnout. Practicing indifference is uncomfortable at first. It requires resisting the urge to explain yourself, to defend, to react, and to please. It may be misunderstood by others who equate constant engagement with commitment. Over time, however, the benefits become clear, peace increases, focus sharpens, confidence grows. You become less influenced by external noise and more anchored in internal direction. Ultimately, indifference as prioritization is about respecting your finite resources. Time, attention, and emotional energy are limited. How you allocate them shapes your life. By choosing where not to care, you create space to care more deeply where it truly matters. This disciplined form of indifference does not distance you from life. It allows you to engage with it more fully, more intentionally, and more powerfully. Guided by purpose rather than pulled by every passing distraction, and demands silence and calm, are among the most powerful strategic tools a person can cultivate. Yet they are often undervalued in a world that rewards noise, haste, and constant reaction. The instinct to speak, respond, or act immediately is deeply ingrained. It is fueled by ego, fear of judgment, and the misconception that visibility equates to power. But true strength does not always announce itself with volume or urgency. Often it resides in quiet presence, measured response, and composed observation. Those who master silence and calm-willed influence far greater than those who merely fill space with words and activity. Silence is not emptiness. It is a deliberate pause that creates space for thought, clarity, and strategy. When you remain silent in moments of provocation, you deny unnecessary power to external forces. Words spoken in haste or anger rarely produce intended results. They can inflame conflict, create misunderstanding, and drain energy. Silence, by contrast, allows the mind to process, assess, and respond deliberately. It is a way of asserting control over the situation without reacting impulsively, preserving both mental energy and dignity. Calm is equally strategic. Emotional turbulence clouds judgment, weakens discipline, and reduces effectiveness. When stress or pressure arises, the calm individual does not flail or panic. Instead, they regulate internal states, allowing reason to guide action. Calmness communicates confidence and authority, often without a single word being spoken. Others sense it intuitively. It is a quiet command that invites respect and influence. The combination of silence and calm creates a presence that is both unshakable and persuasive. Practicing silence and calm requires conscious effort. It begins with awareness of the impulse to react immediately. Many responses are automatic, driven by habit rather than choice. By noticing this impulse, one creates a pause, a space between stimulus and response. In that space, options emerge. Instead of reacting from fear, ego, or anger, one can choose a measured course of action that aligns with long-term goals and values. This simple pause transforms ordinary interactions into strategic opportunities. Silence also fosters listening and observation, skills that are essential for informed action. When one speaks constantly, they may miss subtle cues, underlying motivations, or hidden dynamics. By cultivating silence, you gain access to information others overlook. You observe patterns, detect inconsistencies, and anticipate challenges. This allows decisions to be made not reactively, but strategically. In negotiation, leadership, or conflict, silence becomes a lens through which insight and advantage are gained. Calmness amplifies this effect. A composed mind is able to process multiple streams of information without being overwhelmed. Calmness allows one to separate emotion from fact, perception from reality, and short-term impulses from long-term objectives. In times of crisis, a calm presence reassures others, stabilizes teams, and creates a foundation for decisive action. It prevents the spread of panic, discourages rash behavior, and maintains operational clarity. Calmness is not passivity, it is controlled engagement under pressure. Silence and calm also protect mental energy. Constant reaction, argument, or emotional engagement depletes focus and clarity. Each unnecessary response consumes attention, willpower, and composure. By choosing when to speak and how to act, energy is preserved for moments that truly require it. This preservation is a strategic advantage, allowing sustained performance in situations that demand long-term effort and resilience. In interpersonal relationships, silence and calm function as tools of influence and boundary setting. They prevent escalation in conflict, avoid unnecessary debate, and signal measured judgment. People often fill silence with noise, assuming it is weakness or indecision. The strategic individual knows that silence is rarely empty. It communicates awareness, confidence, and control. Calm, coupled with silence, conveys that one is not ruled by emotional impulses, but by deliberate intention, creating trust, respect, and authority in both personal and professional contexts. Mastering silence and calm is a lifelong practice. It requires patience, self-discipline, and consistent reflection. It may feel counterintuitive in a society that equates business with productivity and chatter with competence. However, those who commit to these practices discover that influence, insight, and effectiveness are often magnified in quiet, measured action rather than constant activity. The mind, unburdened by overreaction, becomes sharper, more creative, and more resilient. Ultimately, silence and calm allow one to operate from a position of power without unnecessary confrontation. They enable clarity of thought, precision of action, and strength of presence. By choosing when to speak and how to respond, by maintaining composure regardless of external circumstances, individuals create an advantage that is both internal and observable to the world. These are not merely personal tools, they are strategic instruments that, when wielded consistently, enhance judgment, amplify influence, and sustain effectiveness across every domain of life, allowing the individual to act with intention. Insight, an unshakable presence, unshakable self-control is a cornerstone of personal power, respect, and freedom. Yet it is one of the most overlooked qualities in a world that celebrates reaction over reflection and impulse over discipline. Most people believe that strength is demonstrated through action, argument, or dominance. But the truth is that real strength is often invisible. It is the ability to govern oneself, to remain composed in the face of provocation, and to act deliberately rather than reactively. Those who master self-control are not simply compliant or restrained, they are free, commanding respect through their consistency, judgment, and integrity. Self-control begins in the mind. Every thought, feeling, and desire is an opportunity to practice mastery. Without control over these internal states, external circumstances will always dictate behavior. When emotions, impulses, or habits govern your actions, you are at the mercy of every situation and every person who can influence your environment. Self-control reverses this dynamic. It places authority within, giving you the ability to choose responses aligned with values, goals, and long-term well-being. Freedom is born in this space because the mind is no longer captive to fleeting sensations or external pressures. Those who exercise unshakable self-control are respected because they are predictable in their principles, yet unpredictable in their strategic decisions. People instinctively recognize the strength required to remain calm when others react with emotion. They sense the power of restraint and the courage of measured action. This respect is not demanded through force, it is earned through consistent demonstration of composure and deliberate choice. Self-control communicates confidence without arrogance, authority without aggression, and integrity without posturing. One of the most profound benefits of self-control is the ability to delay gratification. In a society obsessed with instant rewards, those who can endure short-term discomfort for long-term gain distinguish themselves. They invest energy where it matters, resist temptation that derails progress, and maintain focus despite distraction. Each act of restraint compounds over time, building momentum toward success, stability, and freedom. Conversely, surrendering to immediate impulses often leads to dependency, regret, and diminished autonomy. Self-control is the bridge between desire and disciplined achievement. Unshakable self-control also protects mental and emotional energy. Reacting impulsively to every challenge, insult, or disappointment is exhausting. Each uncontrolled response depletes clarity, focus, and resilience. Self-control conserves energy, allowing it to be invested strategically in situations that truly matter. It transforms the mind into a resource rather than a battlefield, one enabling sustained productivity, sound decision-making, and emotional equilibrium. Freedom, in this sense, is the ability to choose where to direct energy rather than being drained by chaos. Resilience and adaptability are strengthened through self-control. And life is unpredictable, and the most capable individuals are not those shielded from difficulty, but those who navigate it with composure. Self-control allows one to respond to adversity thoughtfully rather than reactively. Mistakes are met with learning rather than panic, setbacks with strategy rather than despair, and criticism with reflection rather than defensiveness. This capacity to endure and adapt builds not only skill and insight, but also a reputation for reliability and wisdom, further reinforcing respect from others. Self-control is intimately connected to personal freedom because it frees the individual from internal slavery. Many people live in chains forged by habit, desire, and reaction. They are ruled by cravings, fears, and the need for approval. Unshakable self-control breaks these chains, allowing choices to be made based on intention rather than compulsion. Freedom is not the absence of obstacles. It is the presence of command over one's own mind and actions. A person who masters self-control is free to act, speak, and create according to their own principles, unbound by emotional turbulence or external pressure. Relationships benefit profoundly from self-control. Those who can regulate their impulses communicate more effectively, resolve conflicts calmly, and act with integrity. They are trusted because their behavior is consistent, deliberate, and reliable. Others feel safe in their presence, knowing that reactions are measured and that decisions are guided by principle rather than passion. Self-control fosters empathy as well, because the disciplined mind can listen without judgment, respond without defensiveness, and engage without manipulation. This creates deeper, more meaningful connections built on trust and respect. Practicing self-control requires awareness and repetition. Every day presents opportunities to strengthen it. Through restraint in speech, patience in thought, moderation in action, and clarity in decision-making. Challenges, temptations, and conflicts are tests. And each successful exercise builds the neural pathways of mastery. Over time, self-control becomes habitual, and the individual moves through life with a calm authority that is both self-reinforcing and outwardly recognized. Ultimately, unshakable self-control is the foundation upon which respect and freedom are built. Respect arises naturally when others witness the strength required to remain composed in adversity. Freedom emerges from the ability to act independently of external pressures, internal impulses, and social expectation. Those who cultivate self-control possess a quiet power that amplifies over time, allowing them to navigate life with clarity, authority, and purpose. They are not easily swayed, shaken, or diverted, and in that stability lies their influence, their dignity, and their liberation.